as we know, generally, like we have the cloud operations team or the system administrators, right? Or maybe database admins and others. So they generally work via the cloud portal, right? AWS portal, or they use tools within that, like systems managers and other tools to manage the environment, right? So, whereas if you are a site reliability engineer, or if you are a person who is responsible for automating the environment. See, these days a lot of organization, they don't want people to do a lot of manual stuffs, right? So they want to avoid manual tasks. They want to reduce the toils. Okay, so generally manual tasks are called as toil in DevOps framework, or in reliability engineering framework. So they call manual task as toil. So the automation engineering team or the automation team, their primary job is to reduce the toil, right? And then we have the DevOps engineers, or the DevSecOps engineers, who are primarily looking to implement continuous integration framework, continuous security framework, or continuous testing framework, or continuous deployment framework. So for this, like, there are variety of tools available natively from AWS, like the code pipeline, the code commit, and all those things. And most of the organization, they also use third-party tools like Atlassian, tools like Bitbucket, and even GitLab from IBM, or GitHub from the open source community. So there are variety of tools and technologies that are available native to AWS, as well as there are a lot of organizations, if in case they want to do a continuous deployment or a continuous integration, so they use GitHub, Jenkins, SonarQube, and those tool sets, right? And but the same set of options and stuffs are available natively with AWS, but mostly those are all limited to deploying products within AWS products and services offering. But then, if in case you have hybrid cloud, multi-cloud environment, and if you have stuff that you need to deploy beyond AWS products and services, then we have to definitely use third-party tools like Bitbucket or Jenkins or SonarQube and other stuff. But then AWS also provides some sort of equivalent options within the AWS span of products and services. And even the DevSecOps engineer, they have to continuously focus on improving stuff, like reducing the manual tasks. They will also contribute towards automation. They will also contribute towards monitoring, observability, and so on. But reliability team, they are more focused around what are the stuff that we can observe from infrastructure, what are the stuff that we can monitor from your application, what kind of performance management stuff that we can do, and so on. So from the name itself, you can see it is reliability engineering. So reliability engineering can be for an entire site, or it can be for a particular product, or for a particular platform. So reliability engineering team can be formed for different aspects. Maybe for some specific applications, we might have a reliability engineering team. For the entire data center platform or AWS platform, we might have a platform reliability engineering team. So you will have different terminologies and names used for reliability engineering team. Okay, so when it comes to automation, or when it comes to enhancing the way that we look at the environment, manage the environment, so you have variety of options that you can leverage from AWS products and services. So if you go to AWS list of products and services, so generally we use this console, right? Console.amazon.com. So this is your graphical option. See, graphical options are much suited for just doing some kind of management, or some operational tasks can be handled using this graphical option. But when it comes to automation, or when you want to do the work quickly and efficiently, graphical options might not be the right option. And when you do things graphically from remote connections, then there are chances that you might do some mistakes, or human errors are unavoidable, right? So manual mistakes will happen, and it might impact your environment productivity. So when you want to do some scripting, or when you want to do some scheduled tasks, or when you want to do some data that needs to be translated, or ETL jobs that needs to be done, so these repetitive activities or repetitive tasks can be automated using the command line options. So command line options are more used by the DevSecOps team, automation team, reliability engineering team. Even organization would like the cloud operations team to enhance their skills and do some kind of automation on their operational work, right? So even they're expecting them to be a kind of cloud. There are some organizations which have separate cloud automation team, but some organization they don't have a separate split up between the teams, but they have the engineers working closely to each other, right? And when it comes to CLI option, command line option, AWS natively provides their own CLI. This is mainly for the ops team to perform their work. As I told you, CLI options are mainly for completing the work or tasks quickly and efficiently in a very organized way, in an organized manner, right? So, and we also have for the development team, we have AWS Shell, okay? And we also have specific tools for specific products. For example, for Elastic Beanstalk, we have a CLI, and for Kubernetes management, we have a separate CLI. So for each and every product, command line management options are there. And even if you want to write some schedule tasks, or if you want to do some scripting, or if you want to perform some automation, you can also use any programming language of your choice, okay? So and then if you are familiar with shell scripting, or if you are familiar with PowerShell scripting, even AWS provides you option to use PowerShell commandlets or shell scripts to run and automate the tasks that we are doing. And the organization, the DevOps framework or the DevSecOps framework, now they are insisting more on deploying the environment using a code instead of a graphical way of creating stuff. So, okay, a lot of organizations they want to adopt infrastructure as a code, right? Okay, so why this particular stuff came into picture? See, when we have the development for a particular let me just explain it in a different way. See, generally, this is how the business operates, right? So, business has a challenge or business has a requirement, right? And this business requirement will be understood by the service provider, right? And then they will understand what exactly the service is being asked by the customer, and they will try and come up with a application, right? And that application is generally developed as a code, right? They will write the application code in the favorite language of their choice, Java or Python or whatever application language that they choose. They will write the code, compile the code, they will test it, and then they will deploy the code for the customer environment, right? So this is how we generally uh, understand and translate the customer requirement and give them as a readily available application, right? So it is being delivered as a application or a program. Similarly, organization want to deploy even the infrastructure as a code so that they know what is being deployed based on the customer requirement. And if in case we need to change it, it can go through a proper way of changing things. Maybe you can adopt agile framework, or even the ITSM processes can be still adopted along with agile framework, and we can deploy the infrastructure for your business requirement, right? They want to deploy the code and have the infrastructure deployed. And if in case we need to make some changes, we will make the changes at the code instead of making the changes in the direct environment, so that we get to understand what kind of impact that it is going to make, and what is the it also helps you to easily roll back if in case of any changes, and we know like what has been changed during this activity and so on. But if you're doing a lot of graphical changes, you do have events, you do have log outcomes, or you know what is being done from the historical commands, but then it is very tough to go and roll back, or if it is very tough to go and find the root cause of the issues and so on. But then if you're going and deploying the environment using a code, it will be reviewed, it will be you'll also see some options on what kind of impact it is going to make, and you can do a test deployment, and then you can do the actual deployment. So there are variety of good options that are available as part of the infrastructure as a code way of deploying the environment. So nowadays organization is primarily emphasizing on reducing the manual task, which is automation, and they want to deploy the environment through the code, which is a very good practice. And then they want to improve whatever metrics that we can get from your monitoring or observability tools. Okay, AWS also provides a lot of native options for both infra and application monitoring, but a lot of organizations they prefer to use third-party tools like App Dynamics or Dynatrace, or a lot of variety of tools are there for application performance monitoring. But mostly infrastructure performance monitoring, we have inbuilt options like CloudWatch and other tools, X-Ray and stuff that can help you to monitor. And there are good tools available in the marketplace like Nagios or SolarWinds and stuff, which can also help you with additional pre-deployed or pre-configured metrics, right? So additional metrics are available in third-party tools, but if in case you want to create on your own, even there are modules through which you can go and configure additional metrics for monitoring. So from this slide, what I want to convey is organization is heavily focused on managing the environment from command line. That is their primary expectation, and that makes things to easily schedule or write scripts and so on. And then they want to deploy the environment with infrastructure as a code, and they want to do a lot of automation, and they want to deploy the environment through continuous integration, continuous security, continuous testing that needs to be done, and so on. So they want to have tool sets which can have a continuous integration from the start, and deliver the product through continuous deployment or delivery. And then as part of the deployment and delivery, they want to test things, they want to check for the security loopholes, vulnerabilities, or what kind of stuff that are there in that environment. And they want to have a agile framework to make changes. But then if it is about the infrastructure deployment, then IT service management processes can still be adopted there. So these are the five major elements that every environment is looking at to make the operational tasks or to make the environment more stable, right? So that is what we are trying to see, like what kind of options are available to deploy the products and services in AWS. Okay, so let's explore more around the command line options, and then we will talk about infrastructure as a code, and then we'll talk about what are the different set of tools that are available for the continuous integration, deployment, and stuff, right? So command line options. So this is not the complete list. AWS CLI is there, AWS Shell is there, and then we also have a option called Cloudshell. See, generally when you are managing the environment, what we generally do, so you go and create a lot of different products and services on the platform, right? So you go and deploy AWS products and services, and then you manage it through a Jump server or a Bastion server will be used. To log into the environment, and then we go and manage all the servers, product services deployed in your environment, right? And for which, what you have to do, you have to have separate credentials for logging in and managing the jump host and servers, right? And then you also have to have subscription or licensing. If you are using the Windows server, you have to purchase the licensing, and you have to purchase the subscriptions if you are using a Linux jump host. And then you have to have multiple logins here. You need to first log into the system, and then you have to log into the server or instance which you need to manage. And there are multiple hops that are involved when you are managing this environment. So to avoid such complexity, what AWS is now providing, they have a pre-installed, pre-deployed set of packages on a particular tool called Cloudshell. So this is very popular now. It is being used heavily by a lot of different DevOps team, and even the cloud operations team are starting to use it heavily. So they call it as a web shell. Okay, instead of Cloud Shell, they also use the term web shell. Okay, both are same. So maybe we will see that in details first, and then we will try to discuss the other options around. Okay, so first tool that is becoming very popular nowadays is the Cloud Shell. Okay, so Cloud Shell is also called as Web Shell. The reason it is called as Web Shell, this particular tool or the option is being accessed using the browser based. It's a browser based interactive and pre-authenticated terminal, right? This is used for managing your AWS resources. So we will see this option. Okay, so if you go to your AWS login, on the topmost um, column menu, you have the list of services. You have the option to go to the AWS home menu, and you have the search bar, and next to that you have this icon which is called the Cloud Shell icon. Right, if you open this Cloud Shell icon, you can see that it is creating an environment for you, and then it is going to load up the environment in a bash shell by default. So you can see that it is there, and then if you go to the right, you have the actions menu where you have the option to restart the AWS Cloud Shell. This is a kind of instance that is created and readily made available for the operations team or for the user to manage the AWS list of products and services. So here, AWS launches the environment for you in few seconds, and we don't have to pay for this separately for the instance or the compute. You don't have to pay anything for persistent storage requirement. So if you're creating some script, or if you're creating some templates, and if you're creating some code and all those things, right? If you want to have that stored for a longer duration, if you want that to be a permanent stuff, you can actually um, use a AWS file share for persistent storage. Okay, you can create a storage account, and then you can store your content within that. So here, let me just quickly check. These days, they are changing the operating system. So whatever the image that AWS is using, sorry, AWS is using is pretty different. Okay. Okay, they have changed it to Amazon Linux 2023. So earlier they used to have what do you call this Ubuntu containers or Ubuntu OS in the past. Even Microsoft Azure has changed their Cloud Shell to Azure Linux, whereas even AWS also starting to use this Amazon Linux, which is a kind of similar to Fedora in from Red Hat open source, right? So it is very much similar to that. It is now owned by IBM, but they are giving you Amazon Linux 2023 operating system, which is pre-installed with a lot of different tools, and you can go and access them. Okay, so they have given the home URL. They are giving some additional details on where exactly they are fixing some of the issues, bugs identified by the customers or the client, whoever is using this Cloud Shell. So Amazon provides you a environment which is pre-installed operating system. Amazon Linux 2023 is the pre-installed operating system that comes with that. And beyond that, you also have a lot of different tools and stuffs that are getting pre-installed in your um, environment. So let's see. So you can see that, see, generally when you are deploying the environment or you are creating a code, you start with your JIT tool, right? Where you commit all the stuff to your centralized repository. So it is a version control tool that we generally use. It is already pre-installed. And even if you want to use some editors, the Nano tool, or what do you call your VA editor, a lot of different text editors are available. And even if you are using um, different operating systems. A lot of different editors are there. Most of them are pre-installed. Whatever Linux file system commands or Linux directory commands that you know, all those commands can be executed here. And even you get the option to go and restart the system. And let's see if you have some of the other options that are listed here. Okay, so pip is there. If you want to make some environment build, you use commands like make, pip, maven, npm, and all those things. So what I'm trying to convey here is that, see, generally, if you are part of a cloud operations team or a DevOps team, so as a cloud ops team, you generally go and change some of the configuration um, management. You make some minor changes in your etc files or some stuff. So you have multiple text editors that are available of your choice that are pre-installed in your Cloudshell. Okay, and as a DevSecOps engineer, generally we start our work with JIT tool or let's say source control tool. So you have a lot of varieties of source control tool that you can have, and even the version control can be done using that. And after that, you go and make the package using the build tool, like make command or maven command for Linux and for pip for Python. So you have varieties of tools that can, I mean, let me also give some examples here. And then after the build is completed, you go and deploy it in your Docker containers, let's say containerized environment. You need kubectl command to manage the Kubernetes environment, Helm package to Helm command tool to manage the package environment. You also have to manage the environment using Docker commands and so on. So these tools are pre-installed in your Cloud Shell. You don't have to really separately install the tools on this machine. See, generally, if you want to have a management jump host or a environment to manage your environment, you have to spend time in deploying these systems. You have to manage this environment. You have to upgrade those operating systems, update those operating systems. You have to pay for the licenses, additional overhead, additional jump to reach the destination environment. So here through the Cloud Shell, it is part of your um, AWS login. So once you log into AWS environment, you don't have to again get authenticated. That's the reason I mentioned it's a pre-authenticated terminal. Once after you log into your AWS console, you don't have to authenticate again. You can virtually log in from anywhere, right? So access this through web browsers virtually from anywhere, anytime, right? You have access. If you have a compatible web browser, you can access this, and it is free of cost for the compute. So when something is free of cost, mostly the SLA might not be there. Okay, so there is no SLA for this Cloud Shell. But if you want to have the persistent storage, you will create a file share, and those contents can be stored within that. And you have options to do minimal management of the shell, right? You can restart, and you can also download files to the shell using this particular option here on the right? You have option to download, upload the file. So if you have a local code or local script or template, you have the option to upload it to the server, and you can also download it. You also have the option to delete the default home directory if you don't want those content to be persistent, right? You can also work in multiple columns and rows. You can create a new tab to work on multiple terminal. If you have some activities or file copying or some activities is progressing in this console, you can also open a new tab and continue to work from a new tab. That option is also there. So you have multiple rows and columns so that you can compare two different configurations in two different systems. Or if you want to do multiple parallel concurrent jobs, you can create new tabs and then split them into rows and columns to manage simultaneously. So simultaneous sessions tabs can be used to perform parallel processing. Okay, and they are using Amazon proprietary operating system, so we don't have to use this Amazon Linux 2023. So AWS proprietary OS is being used here. So then we don't have to really pay for any additional subscriptions or licenses for this. So let's go and check something here. Okay, so medium size, you have the option to enable safe paste. So you can paste some of the things. So as I told you, a lot of different tools are available here. And cloud shell, the challenge here is like if you are not using this shell actively for more than 20 minutes, you will get a new system recreated. But then it's a very powerful option. You can manage everything from your terminal instead of managing everything from your graphical stuff. So manage the environment via terminal. And when I say terminal, in your browser, okay, you don't have to have separate things. And also, it takes very few seconds to launch the environment. And even when I clicked that, it took maybe 5 to 10 seconds to launch it. And the very biggest advantage of using with this is like you have a fully managed environment with the operating system, and the updates, the patches, the vulnerabilities. This is the headache for the support organization or even for the customer. The jump server stability is very, very important. And if you guys are taking down the jump servers, the other support team like the cloud operation, database team, or network team, or whoever is using that jump host or the terminal server, everyone has to wait until the system is stable. And if it has vulnerabilities and stuffs, then a lot of different users or a lot of different support teams, they have their own requirement. See, database team will say I want MySQL client, and then someone will say I want a different client, and there will be a lot of conflicts arising between the team using that. But Amazon has simplified this by having a golden image through which they will deploy with all the pre-installed tools. Only thing is like maybe if you have some specific custom requirement, so you might have to go and install those package if it is available in Amazon repository, or else you will have to have a separate system created if that particular tool or package is not compatible with Amazon Linux 2023. Most probably, like all of them will be compatible, but if in case you need a graphical client, then that is where you might have to go and create a separate Windows jump server or a Bastion server to manage that environment. But if stuffs can be managed completely from the terminal, from the command line, then Cloud Shell is the best option. So you can run whatever scripts or commands, and you get 1 GB of free persistent storage. And if you are creating a premium share, you will get more capacity. This is per region. So this Cloud Shell is bound to a particular location or region where you are logged in, and you can go and customize your home directory. You can go and have some configuration preferences. So settings, preferences, home directory. These things can be changed. Home directory is created for each and every end users to have all their contents that are created by them. So it's a browser-based shell, okay, and you don't have to have a separate machine to install this as an application. And this definitely helps you to increase the productivity because you are having instant access to your environment from the terminal, and you can do whatever job that you want to do. As I told you, organizations are tending to work from command line terminal, and then they want to do a lot of automation and stuff, and they want to create a lot of scripts and templates to deploy it to the environment. So this particular option is pretty much in line to what most of the organizations are looking at. They want to manage, explore, and interact with AWS resources via the terminal, which is the command line option. And that too, if it is available with single sign on through your AWS portal, then nothing like that, right? So you get all the stuffs uh, in a much easier way. So generally, like the Cloud Shell use case, if you ask me, so whatever the daily tasks that you're doing through graphical option can be done using command line. It can be an alternate option for sure for all your operations or DevOps team. So for daily routine tasks, this can be used. It can be operational in nature, or if you are doing some optimization, or if you are doing some governance, all these things can be done. You can also run scripting, or if you want to run some scheduled tasks, or if you want to do some integrated development or integrated editing. So this can also be used as an integrated development environment through which you can go and create some scripts and code. And since you have pre-installed editors, tools, and packages, this keeps things pretty simpler, and you have a option to upload, download the content to your local machine through the browser. That is another biggest advantage you have. So overall, it simplifies your operations management, governance, and I would say infrastructure management is what we generally refer to operations management. Okay, it simplifies it, and also it helps you to improve the security posture. So since AWS is managing the terminal server or the cloud shell, by default it is up to date with the operating system, it is up to date with the patches, there is no vulnerabilities within that system, it is being regularly scanned for any vulnerabilities and discrepancies, and it is generally being updated on a regular basis, the image, and all the incident response or the productivity is going to definitely improve. And you have a very streamlined authentication. If you don't have a AWS login authentication, you cannot access the system, right? So Cloudshell is a very powerful tool. Since it is pre-authenticated shell, you can launch it wherever you are logging into your AWS stuff, and you can run all the commands that you want to run. You can use bash shell or powershell on, and even you can use z shell if you want. Okay, so there are a lot of different options that you have. So let me show you something here. Just give me a second. I think by default, when you talk about command line, AWS provides you AWS CLI, right? So that is the preferred option for managing the environment. And by default, in this terminal, you also have the AWS CLI pre-installed. Right, so AWS CLI is also pre-installed here, and that too you have the latest version 2.15.4. So AWS CLI has got two different versions, version 1 and version 2, major versions. So this is having the version 2, which is the current version pre-installed here, and that too it will have all the latest minor release version 15, and then you also have the latest patch release .4. Generally, when I talk about the releases, see anything that starts at the stuff that we call it as major release, version 1, version 2, and so on, and then you have the minor release 1, 2, and here we see 15 is the minor version release, and you have the patch release to fix any vulnerabilities or stuff. So AWS CLI 2.15.4 is pre-installed here, and you have the different shell options that you can use. So some people, they might come from Linux background, so they might want to work on a bash shell environment. Some might be coming from Windows background, they want to work it on PowerShell. Some people might be familiar with C shell based on their experience with working on different operating systems and Unix flavors, so they might prefer to go with Z shell. So you have option to switch seamlessly between these command line shell. Okay, so there are multiple command line shells that are available. All these are pre-installed, and mostly the make, maven, even if you want to run the sudo command, or some people want to package it using, or compress it or zip it using the tar tool. And you can also go and download the packages using wget directly from the internet. If you want, even if you want to use the zip command. Even the zip command will work. And there is one more, right? There is one more mechanism to compress it. So that is, I think, gunzip or gzip. So that is also available. So a lot of different tools that you want to use, all the different software programming languages that you are familiar with are also available on this. Like the most favorite is Python nowadays, Node.js and other tools, whatever you want to. All the leading major software languages are available. You can create your projects in Python or Node.js or whatever runtime installation that you want. Even you can use the .NET Core, which is Microsoft stuff, right? But you get only core option here. You don't get the .NET entire framework. So whatever runtime environment you want to use it, you can use it. And if you want to integrate with your CI/CD pipeline, either it is native to AWS or third party, you have option to integrate it with the CI/CD tools. So here, if you want to integrate with AWS code pipeline or Jenkins or other GitLab or whatever, you can integrate it very much with them. Okay, not limited to AWS tool. And this home directory, whatever we are talking about, this 1 GB, it is private to you. It's for each and every individual users. You will have a separate home directory. So we call it as $home. Even when you log into your operating systems, you get a home directory, right? Similar to that, when you log into your Cloudshell, you get a 1 GB persistent storage that is free of cost. But if you want to increase it, you can increase it. It is a permanent environment. Whereas whatever the content that you are storing outside of the home, it is not private to you, it is common. So this is the location which is private to you. Whatever the content you are storing here, it will be available only for you. Whatever the content that you are keeping it, it will be persistent across different um, sessions. Okay, and you can also go and there is an option that you can run it in multiple tabs. And if the shell is stopped because of inactive action, I think there is an option to continue the cloud shell. Let me check that 1 second. I think generally like 20 minutes is what the limit, but I heard that it has been increased to 30 minutes. So if you're not actively using it, so this is called as inactive session, or session will get closed after 20 minutes if we are not interacting with the terminal. So either a mouse move or a command or something, if it is running in on your thing, it is fine. But one important thing is, like, the running processes are generally not counted as interaction. Some people will think like if there is a background process that is running, it will help you to have it as an interactive session. No, the background processes are not considered as interactions. Okay, so are not, I would say. So you can also have a long running session option. So if you want to run some scheduled script or a batch job or something like that, you also have a long running session options that can go up to 12 hours. So sometimes you might have to copy certain things across shifts and so on. So you have this option. Okay, you have the data transfer option. You can download and upload. You have some, you have options to the system files and stuff. So let me show you some examples here. After you log in, you might have to provide full access to the Cloud Shell. Okay, there is a IAM role for which you have to give full access, and after that you will be able to completely handle the environment. If in case you are a non-root user, you might have to go and check whether you have the Cloudshell full access. I'll show you where exactly it is. If you go to IAM, so if you want to give full access to a user, you have to go to your IAM, and within that IAM, you have a separate role called AWS Cloudshell full access. This is very much similar to every other products and services, right? Okay, so you have this. So if you look at here, this particular role grants you full access to the user, whoever you want them to interact. So if you want to, this is a AWS managed policy, and you can attach it to a particular IAM role or IAM user or group. Even you can create a separate um, policy if in case you want to customize it for giving limited access, but by default you get full access to the terminal. You can access it completely if you're a root user, but if you're a non-root user, you might have to get the privileges whatever I showed. So you have to go and apply that managed policy for a particular user or group or a particular role. So let's log in, and then I will show you how to work on this particular terminal. So by default, login tagged with your bash shell, right? You get the bash shell through which you can do all Linux based scripting and stuff. But if you want to switch it to PowerShell, you can use the Microsoft PowerShell. And most of you know, right? These days, Microsoft has rebranded their okay, so let me reconnect. See, this is how it will give you the reconnection option, and you can see that it has reconnected to the previous session. And Microsoft earlier they released Windows PowerShell. This is more for their Windows operating systems and Microsoft Windows uh, management, whereas later they want to use this PowerShell to manage multiple different products and services from their portfolio. So they rebranded the name to Microsoft PowerShell. And when it was Windows PowerShell, it was mostly available to be installed on Windows operating systems only. But after they rebranded their tool to Microsoft PowerShell, it is now available in a code format, or it is now available as an open source product across different flavors of operating system, Windows, Linux, Mac, and everything. You can install this Microsoft PowerShell, and it is now available as a platform agnostic or OS agnostic tool. Now this PowerShell is rebranded into Microsoft PowerShell, and if you want to open this Microsoft PowerShell, you can use this pwsh command to switch to the PowerShell mode. On the left, you can see that the terminal has been changed to PowerShell terminal, and again here you have the latest PowerShell version that was available when AWS has created this image. So this is all pre-installed and readily available on your environment. Right, so let me, so if you are a Windows administrator and if you want to do some tasks using PowerShell, you have this PowerShell, Microsoft PowerShell option readily available as a pre-installed option. And if you are a person who is more familiar with Unix systems or different products, you can also go and change it to Z shell, right? So you can type ZSH and you can convert your login to Z shell. You can see that the shell has changed here. This is Microsoft PowerShell. And if you want to do some code change or whatever, see, let me clear the screen. So all the commands that you generally work will be available. Okay, so let's see. So currently you will be in your default Cloudshell user home, but if you are logged in with your separate user, you will have a separate home directory and home path for your user. And I can go and do whatever I want. I can create stand folder one, and then within that stand folder one, if I want to create some code or script, create some code or script, I can also go and create something. I can use VA editor like stand file one, and then just this is a test, and I can save it. And then if I want to download that file, I can also download that file. So I can just say, so this is the path. And if I want to download that code to my local machine or upload it, I can just use this option. I just have to give this path stash stand file one, and then give download. So it will download whatever code or template or script that you have created to your local machine. Similarly, you can upload the files, the code that you have from your local machine, and you need to provide the absolute path slash home directory and so on. And you can also give a relative path if in case you are in a particular folder, you can directly give the particular relative path also. See, absolute path is you have to give the complete structure slash home slash Cloudshell. Okay, let me just give that here. You can also use absolute path if you are in a if you want to convey the entire path, you can also give it like this. Or else if you are in a specific location already, you can just give the relative path. And for example, if I'm in stand folder one already, I can just say stand folder one and stand file one, automatically it will download and upload it. So if you can just give the relative path where you are currently in, or if you want to give the entire absolute path when you want to do upload or download, you can just give the relative path names, and it will get automatically added here. Okay, so similarly you can upload a file by giving the local Python file or any scripts that you have created. You can also use the regular command like move command or any command, cd, all the basic commands that you have on your on your Linux will work. So currently I'm in the stand folder one, and if I want to move this file, I can also move this file to a different location. Just for example, I'm moving it here. I'm just showing you that these commands will work. Even copy command or mv command or make directory or cd command, everything will work just like you are in a different Linux machine. So as I told you, this is a Amazon Linux stuff, and if you want to find something or search something, all the options are available here. For example, if I want to find some files or okay, so it tells me like there is a particular file or folder with this particular name, and if I want to find and clean up something, I can also delete it. So it might have found the stuff and it might have deleted that file. See, that file is no more. So I can also search. I can use the common commands which I use for finding, filtering. If you want to do a lot of stuff, you can do it. Okay, and if you want to change the home directory, suppose I want to have a separate folder or stuff for my user or the session, I can also go and change it. So in order to change that, you have to go and change it. Home. If you want to create a backup file, I can also create a backup. So let me show you how to do that. So what this will do is it will go and create a home directory, and it will create a temporary folder outside your home directory. And within that, what you can do is if you want to store your code or store your content scripts that you created, you can use the tar command to create a complete backup of your scripts, templates, and stuff, and you can create it in a separate drive and you can download it. Okay, if you want to do it, you can also do it. I have seen people creating an additional backup directory, and then they will use tar command or zip command to go and copy all the files into a directory, and they will have a local gzip file or the tar file for as a safer side. Okay, generally you don't rely upon completely on the Cloudshell persistent storage. So what you can do is you can use the tar command will also work. Even the zip command will also work. Okay, so you can use zip command or tar command to compress and create a zip file, whatever the scripts, templates, code that you have created. You can create a zip file and locally download it, or you can keep it in a separate backup directory so that you can have it. Even you have direct access through your S3, right? You can directly connect to your Amazon S3 bucket, and you can also upload the files directly there. Instead of down locally copying that files, you can also copy the content, whatever you have created as a zip file or tar file. You can also upload it to your S3 bucket. Even you don't have to separately log into S3 bucket or something. So here you can directly say AWS S3, whatever the file that you want to zip file, right? Whatever you have created, you can just upload it to S3 bucket, something like stan AWS bucket 001. Automatically, it will copy the complete file to S3 bucket also, which is your object storage, right? You have direct access to AWS products and services. You can back up and store it to S3, or you can download it. So if you are working continuously as a developer, as a DevOps engineer, you might have to create different code, different template scripts. So you can take a backup like using a zip file or tar file, and you can store it. And if in case there is a issue with your environment, if this browser is not responding, you can try and restart the shell, or you can try and see if you can create a new tab or a new parallel session, and then see if you are able to work on it. So that is how you can manage it. So you have option to use all the editors. You have option to use all the different PowerShell or Z shell or Bash shell. So all these options are readily available with this Cloud Shell option. So with Cloud Shell, you don't have to have a separate jump server in like how you used to work in the past. But nowadays, like if you are a separate user, you also get a security here, because you have a separate home folder. Your session is also independent from the other user. But if you are having a shared machine, that is prone to issues, because different people will try and install something. They will create different files, and they will create separate scripts and stuff, which might impact your login access to the environment. So here, this is a beautiful option. You don't have to worry about uptime, SLA of your Bastion servers. Generally, if you are having Bastion servers that was created by you, you'll have to think about the load. You'll have to think about the number of sessions. You have to maintain that environment, maintain that operating system to ensure that your favorite packages or tools getting installed. Here, it is pretty much very much stable. You can directly access the shell whenever you want, and you can work with different AWS products and services at your free time. You can integrate with your CI/CD pipeline. Even AWS code pipeline or code commit can be integrated. Even you can directly manage your containerized environment, ECR repository, or even you can deploy environments using AWS CLI or AWS CDK. Those are all pre-installed within your Cloud Shell. Okay, any questions so far on the AWS Cloud Shell? So navigating the shell interface is pretty much straightforward. You have very basic options here, and you have options to switch between PowerShell, Bash shell, and Z shell within the same terminal. And you can also open up multiple tabs. You can work parallelly in split rows and columns, where you can do multiple activities in parallel. And yeah, so try to use this, try to spend some time and get familiar with this option. These are all pretty much um, I mean, we are they're starting to use this very heavily. Okay, one important point that I missed to convey here is any questions before I progress?
Uh, I stand. Good morning.
Yeah.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
If you are not interacting with AWS Clouds for 15 minutes,
Hmm.
as you said that within 20 minutes the session get expired.
Hmm.
So in this case, what are the things are which is typed or saved? It will be reconnect or it will be closed
See, there
automatically.
are two things, as I told you. So you are working on different files here, right? And whatever you are storing on your home drive, okay, so that will be persistent, right? So you are working with scripts, or I would say working with files. So you are working on the OS related files, for an example, right? So those are all not persistent across sessions. Those are all on your temporary storage. But whatever you are creating, the scripts, whatever you are creating, those will be on the persistent storage, which is like 1 GB is available by default for you, and that is what you get as a home directory. So whatever you are making changes, so all these are under your home directory. Sorry. Yeah, your slash home, right? It's a persistent storage. Whatever you are making changes, that will persist across sessions. And as I told you, always take a backup. Okay, so don't rely upon this option. If you are working on something, if something goes wrong, then your entire work will be in jeopardy. So you have to take a backup using zip command. At the end of the day, try to create a tar file or a zip file and then upload it in S3 or in a local machine so that you have a secondary copy. Okay, hopefully, like there should not be any issues with your home folder. Okay, so that should persist across different sessions, but generally most of the people, they will also create a separate backup so that they can reuse this whenever they want it, or whenever they want to restore it from their local backup or from the S3, they can also do it. Okay, so by default, there are different tools, right? These days, AWS provides you AWS Cloud9, which is a very popular command line option. You will also see that. I'll also explain it. AWS Cloud9, as I told you, AWS Elastic Beanstalk command line, Elastic your ECS option. So there are many other, I think even there is a tool called AWS SAM. So all these options are a little different from each other. So this is mainly for command line tools which are pre-installed for managing different tools and environment. And when you're working with the Cloudshell, by default, if you want to connect to a particular region whenever you are logging in, like your graphical option, you can also go and set the default environment. So let me show you that. So let's see. Yeah, so if you want to set this, mhm. So you can just say AWS underscore region is equal to, for example, if you want to use Asia Pacific South 1, AP South 1, you can say. Sometimes if you are going and creating resources from the command line, it might end up, okay, I've made a typo there, double N. Okay, environment, did I type something wrong? Underscore region, Asia Pacific. So this, again, this is only for your current session. Okay. Okay. I thought I was able to set it, but let me check. Okay. AWS region. Okay, let me check it. I think there is an option to do that. Oh, sorry. I am using this wrong command here. So this is a PowerShell command, which I'm typing on Bash shell. Okay, so mostly I'm familiar with this PowerShell thing. So that's the reason I did not notice it. See, for example, if you want to set the environment variable for your PowerShell environment, if you are creating something, and you might end up creating the resources in a wrong region. And if you want to avoid that, so generally you can set the environment variable at the beginning of the session. And if you're using Bash shell or Z shell, generally we use this export option. Okay, I completely messed up with the command here. So here you just go and say us-1. So if you want, this is the same for your Bash shell and PowerShell. Sorry, Bash shell and Z shell. Okay, so whatever command I was trying earlier, it was a PowerShell environment variable method to set the default on your environment. So if you want to work on a particular region or a location, you can set the environment variable so that you don't end up creating on a wrong region. So this you can do it. You can also do one more way. Okay, so for example, if you want to configure it, you can also configure it. By default, the region is also East US1. If you want to check that environment variable, you can check it here. Okay, so AWS configure command is for your AWS CLI. If you are using AWS CLI or different AWS ECR or AWS EBS, even AWS SAM, you can set the environment variable defaulting to a particular region, and that way you don't create the products and services in a wrong region. So you can check this, okay, using the AWS configure list command. Yeah, let's see. I can show you a few commands on how to interact with your different tool sets. But for now, we have not seen any demo about AWS CLI. We will see the demo about AWS CLI, and I will show you how to use those commands in your Cloudshell. So with that, see Cloudshell, it's a pre-installed tool. You get a lot of interesting options to work in parallel in the Cloud Shell without using the jump server option. So jump server has got some limitation, but sometimes it might be needed. If in case you want to install some Windows based applications or tools to manage your environment, then definitely you have to create a separate Windows jump server or a Bastion server for installing that tools. Even if you have a package or tool that are not compatible with Amazon Linux 2023, you might have to go and have a separate system to install those client or tools to manage the environment. Okay, any questions so far on the Cloud Shell? If not, we will move on to the AWS CLI. So all these image management, the tools, packages are being managed by Amazon. So we don't have to worry about the vulnerabilities and stuff. They will help you to fix any vulnerabilities arising out of the packages and tools that they are giving you. And the compute host is generally temporary, and after 20 to 30 minutes of inactive or without interactions, if you are keeping the session open, it will get terminated, and sometimes you can go and reconnect to the session, and or else you have to rely upon the $home directory where you go have the content. And you have the option to work on different shell mode based on your interest area, and all the default file system commands or directory management commands and different uh, packages, if you want to interact with, all those tools are pre-installed, apps are pre-installed, so you can directly work on it. Okay, just let's see if I missed anything. As I told you, pricing is there for your additional um, storage that you are using, but the compute, whatever the operating system and the underlying memory and CPU, it is available free of cost for you. Only thing you have to pay for the storage wherever the scripts are getting stored. And again, if you are transferring or if you're deploying something from Cloud Shell to different geographical region, if there is some data transfer out of a region, then you have to pay for it. Okay, so think about it. Okay, so let's move on to AWS CLI, which is the most commonly used option next to your Cloud Shell. So AWS CLI, it is more intended for making your job easier. Like command line is more used for automating things or to run some scheduled task or creating some scripts. Then mostly the command line interface option is used. Let me go there. So it is available as a separate installable for your Windows, Linux, and MacBook.